What's up, fake nerds? It's me, Sparks Woody, and I'm joined by Ben Magnet and Brandon T. McClure, but not Ryan Eliopoulos because he's busy. So anyway, we're here to talk about Hawkeye. The rest of the episodes that we didn't do last time, 4, 5, and 6, but also the whole season because it's 4, 5, and 6. So there it is. It's Hawkeye time, guys. Hawkeye the best MCU show of the year? Maybe. I don't know.
Real quickly, Ryan has explosive diarrhea.
It's just rude.
That's what you guys used to say about me when I skipped.
Same here. Every time I'd be on, I was like, yeah, he has explosive diarrhea, so
I feel like you started that, Brandon.
I would never. I don't think I would.
It was definitely a Ryan thing. Like we would say
that it could be. It could be.
Like if one of us was sick, we would say, "Oh yeah, so and so's not here because they're sick," and then Ryan would say, "Yeah, explosive diarrhea, man. That's a problem."
This is what people come here for. New year 2022, and here we are talking about diarrhea.
This is little backstage pass action here. We got burnt out with these Marvel shows with the holidays and everything going on in our lives. It just we paired them up as 2 episodes, and that just became a little bit more palatable for us. So
it's funny
you guys are still here.
It's funny because honestly, Hawkeye's the one I think I got burnt out on the least.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
As far as like watching it.
Oh sure.
Scheduling was hard for this time of year, but like watching it, I didn't get burnt out watching it.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I do want to add. We may slightly spoil Spider-Man No Way Home, and if you haven't seen it at this point, I'm sorry.
There's definitely people that haven't seen it at this point because I just went to the theater to see it a second at a time today, and there were people in the audience who went, "Oh!" like just surprised at some appearances, and I was like, "Oh, wow, is this still happening?"
That's actually true because there are some people at my work who are like, "Oh man, can't wait to go see Spider-Man." I'm just because they've been so busy with all the holiday stuff. It's like, can't say a word. I can't
say I'm surprised. I can't say I'm surprised because we saw it the Thursday midnight, and then it's taken me 2 weeks to get back to the theaters to see it, even though I wanted to see it immediately. So I get it.
Yeah. And of course, we are still on our hiatus. The Fake Nerd Podcast is still on hiatus. There is still plenty of stuff you can check out on our YouTube channel. Sparks has been diligently uploading some old reviews that we've done this past year. Our new Basement Arcade episode is up now, Mortal Kombat X. So we'll be back with Fake Nerd Podcast on the 9th with a review of 2021. And
Fake Nerds Watch sometime. Who knows? We haven't talked about it at all.
We haven't. We haven't talked about if we want to do Boba Fett or not.
I'm sure we'll do Boba Fett. I just don't know in what format. Yeah. As far as like amount of the show we'll do Boba Fett. It's definitely not going to be episode by episode. I can tell you that right now.
Have you guys watched it yet?
I was lucky enough to actually watch the first episode of Boba Fett, and then I was like, man, this is a good show. I mean, I liked it. Don't know if I have much to say about this first episode, though.
Well, we paired up Mandalorian episodes. We could very well do the same thing with Boba Fett. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Boba Fett.
No,
we are not. We're here to talk about Hawkeye. Hawkeye episodes 1 through 3, sort of, still 4, 5, 6. If you haven't seen it, don't watch this. Don't be here.
Why are you here? Episode 4. Episode 4. I watched this now like 4 weeks ago. What happened to this episode?
Episode 4 is the one where you start with Clint with Jack's sword at Clint's throat. Right. And they have the encounter with Kate's mom, and Kate's mom's like, Clint, yo, don't do this. And Clint's like, yeah, okay. I mean, like, And then they go and they hang out and they have their Christmas sweater bonding time.
That's a good scene, actually.
And actually, I love just the line when Vera Farmiga, Kate's mom, walks in. She's like, why is there an Avenger in my living room? I like how everyone recognizes Clint as an Avenger.
I think at this point, we've talked about it before, I think, but like, if there's a superhero in the universe, I think everyone just assumes they're an Avenger. Mm-hmm. Like the public just assumes they're Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Ant-Man's in the play.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Even though he wasn't there.
God, that song.
I quite enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a lot of fun. This is also the first time we meet Yelena in this show. briefly. She gets a small bit at the end.
Yeah, this is the Partners Am I Right episode. Yeah, there's a lot of this is a lot of like the calm down bonding time. I think this easily could be marked as a filler episode, but I didn't feel like it was a filler episode.
Yeah. The thing about I was trying to say this earlier, but the thing about Hawkeye that I really enjoyed is that I did wait a little while. I didn't watch these episodes week by week. I kind of let them build up a little bit. I let episodes 4 and 5 build up, and then once I watched them, the second I was done with episode 4, I was like, "Oh man, I need to find out what happens." It wasn't like with some of the other shows, like with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, okay, that was cool. I could wait for the next episode. It was, oh man, I need to know what happens, especially with the cliff.
Or like with What If, when I was just kind of like watching What If, and I'd be like, "Do I gotta watch the next one?"
Yeah, it's like I'm caught up, right? No, damn it. Whereas this one's like I'm not caught. It's like, please tell me I got one more. Okay, I got one more. Awesome.
Sure. Yeah, I think that this episode benefits from being a filler episode in a way that I think some Marvel shows could use, like quote unquote a filler episode, because what it is, it's a character building episode. It's we've talked about it before, like a lot of these Marvel shows are surprisingly plot focused and not so character focused like the movies have historically been for the MCU. And so having an episode like this and really just settling down and focusing on character was really refreshing and able to like get me to root for both Clint and Kate in a way that I didn't feel like I could for, say, Falcon and Bucky, you know?
Yes, I think that is a good summation of the whole thing with it, which is that's why I said, like, some people would call this a filler episode. I wouldn't, because it's pretty light on the action until the very end. And like, I like that. I've realized that there's a lot of MCU fans that don't agree with me. But this is definitely an episode that made me go, this is the episode where I sat there and I went, I think Hawkeye might be the best of the shows this year, at least as far as using its time. That's when I started saying that. And I was like, I mean, if they stick the landing on this, which we'll get into, then I would say like they know better what they're doing with 6 episodes than I think, or 6 hours than any of the other shows did.
Right.
And I think that's overall probably pretty true. And it's exactly because of what you said. It's that they're using the time to build the character dynamics rather than stuff it with more plot bullshit.
Yeah.
Like this is around the time where like you're having a whole subplot in Falcon with like Zemo and the power broker. We got to talk to Sharon. We got to do some stuff about Carly owing shit to the power broker, and like also John Walker's there, and I'm like, that sounds so like that's so bloated just talking about it. And here it's just like Clint and Kate have an encounter with her mom, and then they're like, yo, I don't know, and they gotta like talk with each other and bond about shit. And Clint have to express his regrets about being the Ronin to Kate. And that, everybody dealt with the blip differently, and then them do their stuff at the end. It's not trying to do too much.
No, it really isn't. And I think that's where Hawkeye, looking back on Hawkeye, it feels like, whereas Falcon and the Winter Soldier felt like you had just shoved a bunch of stuff into a 2.5-hour movie, Hawkeye felt like you could condense this into a 2.5-hour movie, but you did stretch it out in a way that made sense for a TV show.
Right, because we had the proper time to learn about the characters, to connect with the characters. Like, this is the episode that makes you kind of like Jack a little more. Up to that point, you're just as suspicious of him as Kate, and then this is the episode where like he gets euphemisms wrong, and you start to be like, oh, I kind of like Jack.
This is also the one where he's arrested, isn't he? Isn't it?
No, that's the next episode.
Is it?
Next one, he gets
episode
arrested.
5.
So there's also the bit where I want to real quickly talk about how Clint teaches Kate how to flick a coin. And I think that's such a cool it's a cool trick from the comics, but it's cool that like they bond over Kate trying to learn that. It kind of feels proud that he's teaching her this. Like he's really coming to he's no longer a reluctant mentor. He feels like a mentor to her.
Yes. I've heard people talk about this in like a groaning kind of way where they're upset that Kate learns to do the quarter trick so fast. And I'm like, I mean, no, like yes, she got the shot on the TV once. That doesn't mean that she's a pro now, because like the next episode you have her messing with the quarter thing and she screws up. And then yeah, she's able to use that skill, but it's like it clearly takes work. So I'm not. Is a minor thing. I'm not trying to dovetail. I've heard people like go for like 20 minutes complaining about this, and I'm like,
really?
It's also
sorry.
She's a prodigy though. She'll pick up anything really quickly. We've established that.
That's true. I think that there is an amount of like the context that they were having this discussion in, and I get it, is like comparing it with Awkwafina's character being able to shoot the dragon right in the heart the first day she's picked up a bow and arrow.
Sure.
And Ned being able to use a sling ring. Sorry, spoilers for No Way Home. Ned being able to use a sling ring.
I warned you.
Ned being able to use a sling ring without like having to do the kind of intense practice that others were doing in Doctor Strange. And I'm like, I get it. There's this kind of argument of like lazier and lazier storytelling to make it so that new characters can stand up with, side by side with the superheroes. I understand. I don't think that Kate is a good example of that. I do think the Awkwafina one is a reasonable conversation to have, but not this one. But I understand where that's coming from. Again, didn't mean to dovetail that too hard. It's just something I've seen a lot. Yeah, I really liked everything about them bonding through this episode. And I like Jack. I think 3 and 4 are a real sweet spot. 3, which we talked about in the last episode, with a lot of the good action of Maya chasing them, and just a lot of great stuff there. And then following it up with this good, very character focused moment, I thought was really strong.
And it works well, and you buy it at the end. Well, I don't mean to speak for all of us, but I buy it at the end when Clint lets Kate go off the roof, when he realizes that a Black Widow's there. He doesn't know who she is, but like he's like, I don't want to lose you like I lost Nat.
Well, and the way they recreate the shot when Kate goes over and he's looking down at her, and I'm so glad they didn't go the full 9 yards with it and like have a flash image of Natasha.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And like you get it, like you've watched it, you understand what Clint is seeing without having to show the audience what Clint is seeing.
Yes.
I thought that was the better choice.
There's also I also said in the early episodes how disappointed I was in the action, and I don't know if they got a new choreographer, but it definitely feels like they did. In these later episodes, the action is much crisper. You feel it better, especially the stuff that Yelena does. I think is really solid action that is on par with the movies in a way that the show didn't do when we first saw the first 2 episodes.
I'm pretty confident that the person working with Yelena specifically is the same person from Black Widow.
That would make sense
for their fight choreography. I don't know beyond that, but I'm pretty confident that that's been said.
Sure.
I didn't have a huge problem with the action in the earlier part of the season. I do think that the action is even better in this back half of the show.
Yeah.
But again, like I also fully acknowledge I watch CW shows on the regular, so my barometer is askew.
Sure. Yeah.
I do think I remember the beginning of this episode, which is the part where Kate's mom is talking to Clint and basically saying like, this life is dangerous. It's not for everybody. And she brings up Natasha very pointedly. That's the moment when I started to go, she's not a goodie, is she?
Right. I was like,
up to that point, I was like, it could go either way. That was the moment where I started to go, I don't know if I trust you.
I did the same. I was like, man.
Yeah, there's another moment. I don't remember the specific moment, but there's another moment in the conversation where like she's wanting to talk about something specific and Jack's in the room and Eleanor brushes it off really, really like shadily, and moves the conversation a different way. So I think they were very like giving some pretty hard, strong context clues of like, that I think that's why I liked this season more than the other shows too, is like people have talked about how pretty much all of the MCU shows this season, they've had like a big reveal villain with a twist. That's been Sharon Carter, Agatha,
Kang.
I don't think Eleanor was bad. I think it worked. I think it felt like natural progression, and it didn't feel as I'm trying to phrase this right. It didn't feel as like, haha, we got you.
Yeah.
Like the Sharon Carter one did.
I think when people make that discussion, they're not talking about Eleanor. They're talking.
No, they're
about the
talking
big
about.
guy.
I've seen people talk about Eleanor too, which is why I want to say
see.
like I think Eleanor is a similar trajectory of revealing Sharon Carter as the power broker, right?
Right.
But I think it's done better because it doesn't feel like the show's trying to trick you. It just feels like the show is telling you the story.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would also say the same.
Like that, as you're going, you are with Kate and you're like, Jack's kind of shady, right? And then you're like, wait a minute, Jack's kind of sweet. Is he just dumb? Is Eleanor shady? Oh, Eleanor's shady. Oh, there it is. Like, it never feels like it's trying to hide it from you in a really absurd way. It feels like it pulls apart the layers and you find the truth just the same way that Kate does. And I think it feels very natural in that way.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would feel the same way. I think as we talk about this show, I may change my mind on it. You've talked a bit about, like, I don't mind saying this now, but like you've talked a bit about how you think this might be the best one. I think I still go back to WandaVision as my favorite, only for its structure and how much fun it was to watch. And I think a lot of that has to do with burnout from whatever. I attribute it to What If, because What If really burned me out, even though I enjoyed the show. But like whatever happened towards the end of the year, I got pretty burnt out on the Marvel stuff. So I wonder if that played a big role in how I felt about Hawkeye.
Sure, yeah. It's something that we've talked off mic that I want to do a like retrospective discussion at some point. Not necessarily the whole year. If more MCU shows come out, they can be included in the conversation. But something where we really talk about like what's working, what isn't. I think that when I think back to WandaVision, like, I think I love the experience of watching it more than I necessarily love the whole narrative of the story.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I kind of say the same thing.
And so like, it's honestly like a situation where I'm going to have to watch WandaVision again to know if maybe I would put WandaVision above Hawkeye. It's definitely those two are close. Mm-hmm. But because Hawkeye is the most recent, it's the most fresh in my mind as I cannot get over that. I still feel like WandaVision was really good until WandaVision crammed way too much into its last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And did too much. And then of course there's the Ralph Boner thing leaves a terrible taste in my mouth.
Seriously.
But Hawkeye, I don't feel like Hawkeye, I feel like Hawkeye had the measurements right for a 6-episode limited series. I think it measured everything out pretty well, with arguably kind of the exception of one thing, which we'll get into when we get to the last episode. But since we're still on episode 4, I want to just go through my notes real quick and see if there's anything else I wanted to bring up. Yeah. Oh, this is where we get the hint about Laura Barton when she's on the phone and she speaks another language.
Yes.
And she's doing investigating.
Yeah, she's investigating, and we also get the sense that the watch is more important than it will end up becoming.
So this is the episode where the episode ended and both Ryan and I were like, oh, okay, so the Rolex belongs to her. Like we talked it out and we're like, okay, so it's her. She's probably Mockingbird.
A Mockingbird. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That was good. That was good, like, setup for that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the payoff, but
I also like introducing. I don't think it's necessary because I always felt like Linda Cardellini was a SHIELD agent. For whatever reason, it just made sense to me that she and Clint would be SHIELD agents together.
Tony Stark, even dead, he's always right.
It's true. And I think it gives a nice sense of legacy to the comics to make her. I don't buy that she's Bobby Morse. I know a lot of people claim that it retcons Agents of SHIELD. I don't think it does. I think that she is a Mockingbird.
Sure.
And I think that connects really nicely to the comics because of the relationship that Clint and Mockingbird have in the comics. And I like that. I think that's interesting and fun.
Yes, I like that too. We'll talk about when we get to the last episode about the Rolex as a whole, but the fact that we learned she was Agent 19, I think is totally real good.
Yeah, I agree.
When Clint tells the story of how he met Natasha, I thought that was really great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because we saw it from the other perspective just a couple months ago,
right?
I thought that was
when she told the story and now he told the story. I thought it was really good. And then them talking about the blip is really good. It's the Thanos was right mug was a little much for me. I don't know how you guys feel.
I didn't notice it until like the last second, until like when he's just taking a sip. I was like, does that say what I think that says?
I would buy that grandmother has a Thanos' right mug. I don't know if I buy that Clint would drink out of it.
That's part of it. The other part is it on the urinal. I'm like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
It on the mug is like, that's a level of like, we're talking. There's a cult of belief that we're not exploring enough about the MCU.
There's
there are people who are making merchandise that says this. Like,
there's a flourishing merchandise market, probably like Etsy, I guess. Like, I don't think that like New York City would have like Thanos' right mugs just in their gift shops.
And honestly, like, keep up with the conversation, New York. Clearly, at this point in time, the thing people were putting on cups and everything was Mysterio was right. Jesus.
That's true.
True. Very true.
Unless all of Hawkeye is post No Way Home, in which case, no. Whatever.
Well, it is post No Way Home.
Right, but I mean post No Way Home.
Oh yeah, no, it is, because like at the end of like, it's Christmas
swings
time.
over. Right.
Yeah.
The whole
they mentioned the new and improved Statue of Liberty. I'm like, oh, that must be a No Way Home reference. Which turns out it is.
That's true. That I was surprised. Zara was like, what did they do to the Statue of Liberty? I was like, so in the trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home.
I mean, like, we'll never know. I wonder if like episodes 1 and 2 of Hawkeye take place before the movie starts. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
I don't think we'll ever have a as much. Look, my OCD goes crazy for the timeline shit. You know me, like I'm constantly like, I have a list on Letterboxd that is private because I don't want anybody seeing it, which is just my MCU continuity for OCD reasons, because I need to keep it straight in my head.
Oh man, I have it all written out on my computer.
And so like I'm looking at this going like, okay, but if I'm like doing the like mathematicals in my mind, it's a sickness, and I don't think we will ever truly understand and fathom the continuity timeline of the MCU ever again.
Yeah, that's true. I liked them bringing back the LARPers.
Mm-hmm. I like them a lot. I think they're fun characters.
I love the LARPers, but also one of my favorite scenes in episode 4. Or not episode 4, episode 5 is the scene with Clint at Grand Central Terminal with the plaque.
Keep it on episode 4. I want to talk about that.
Oh, we're still. I thought we moved to episode 5.
No, I was still going through notes for episode 4 because I was going to mention the "this is my bag" moment when she's talking about her wife's with the arrows in it. Yeah. She's like, "You didn't bring your own bag? I'll bring it back. This is my bag. My wife got it for me." I love the bit when Kate goes into the building and she talks to the old man carrying his groceries, and she's like, "Do you want to know who I'm talking to?
Yeah,
I'm talking to an Avenger."
Yeah,
and Clint's just like, "Kate, no."
And the old man's like, "Oh, it's okay. I don't need help." And I was just like, "No, I can help you." He's like, "No," because he thinks she's a crazy lady.
The crazy woman, yeah.
Yeah. And that's where we get the story about the Rolex belonging to a friend that has been out of the game for a long time, and everybody starts going, "Who is this?" And yeah, we know now. That's all my notes on episode 4.
All right.
Cool action scene at the end.
We get the watch back in this episode.
Yeah, I will bring this up. Like, this is my problem with the watch. Hawkeye has a flaw that all the MCU shows have, and Hawkeye's comes up here, which is that when we get to episode 5, Clint doesn't seem to give a shit where the watch is.
Well, he already has it.
Does he get it from Kate?
I don't know, because that happens off screen. Because
see,
Kate
that's my problem. It's like it's not even talked about. It's just it doesn't come up at all in episode 5, and I'm like, oh man, this is again like the larger problem of like we kind of lose the trail of why the Rolex matters.
Yeah.
I don't know why Wilson ever wanted it. We'll never find out.
No,
I guess. I don't know why Echo had it and didn't turn it over. It just kind of becomes it's not even a MacGuffin, but like a thing to make story happen sometimes, and that's a little odd. And like the Rolex thing as a thing that was motivating stuff to happen bothered me.
Yeah.
And honestly, it wouldn't bother me as much if at the very beginning of the series they didn't say, get the Rolex, everything else is secondary, or whatever they said that made it clear was their primary objective, because that made it a thing that like Fisk was targeting, and it was a big problem that for Clint that he would be targeting that.
You could just
And
make
it's
it
like,
an accident that they have it. Like,
Right,
just make it that
exactly.
it's an accident.
Right, exactly. And then Clint being like, oh shit.
So obviously the big reveal of the episode is of episode 5. We'll get there.
Is that Jack gets arrested.
That is it. Jack gets arrested.
Yep.
That's where I was kind of like, oh, he's innocent. He's just a puppy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's just a puppy who tries to. Well, I mean, he can. He's very good with the sword, but at the same time, it's like something's up here. Like the second when he was getting arrested, I'm like, something's up.
And he's so chipper about it. He's like, it's all a mistake. I don't know what's going on. We'll figure this out. I'll be home soon. Don't worry about it.
Clearly, I'm being framed.
Yeah. And he's so just chipper. He's just okay with it. He's like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll be back for Christmas dinner.
Right.
And I think the probably the standout for this episode for me, and I don't want to speak for you two, but I would assume is Yelena and Kate.
Oh, I mean, like that's almost standout for the series.
It's a very good scene,
even though it's only
even
though it's only in 2 episodes. Like Yelena and Kate make me so excited for the future of the MCU.
Me too. I think Florence Pugh and Haley Steinfeld work off very well together. The scene when they're just in Kate's apartment is such a dynamic sequence, and how this
is not cutlery, Kate.
She always says Kate Bishop, and like they're reading each other, but Yelena's clearly better at reading Kate than Kate is at reading Yelena. And it's a very well written dialogue scene that's well shot. It's all in all probably one of the best scenes in the whole show.
Just the whole time when Yelena is made macaroni, she's like, "Come on, eat! You need to eat." And Kate is just like, "Dude,
do you want macaroni? Do you want macaroni?" I know what boxed mac and cheese tastes like. I know it's freaking delicious.
People have made comparisons, and I think they're spot on that Yelena is essentially the MCU's Villanelle, Jodie Comer from Killing Eve. There is practically the same setup of a scene in season 2 of Killing Eve where she goes into her home and makes dinner and sits there with her. It's very much a similar section, except that Villanelle wants to bang Eve like nobody's business. I'm not being exaggeratory. That's really what's up. It's definitely got that same like bite and vibe, and I think that's very good.
Yeah, one of the things that I realized was missing from like Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think is probably the biggest example of a show that could have benefited from a scene like this. Yeah. We do get a bit of it with like the therapy session, but it doesn't lead to anything. It doesn't add anything to the characters. They tease it, but they don't go far enough with it. Whereas here they really slow the plot down to just have a dialogue sequence with these two characters and have them get to know each other and further the plot in that way. And I think that's where this show, its simplicity almost has shined over the other shows.
Yeah, I think so.
The question was episode 5 or episode 6 where we find out what happened to Yelena and the blip.
That's literally what I was about to bring up, is the opening where Yelena has her perspective of being blipped.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've seen Monica's perspective. We were outside looking in. Oh.
But the thing is, the one thing I love about Monica is that Monica, she was taking a nap at her mom's bedside, and then when she got blipped and when she came back, she's like, okay. Whereas with Yelena, she was actually awake. We saw that just like you see the whoosh, and then everything around her changes, and for her it was instantaneous.
That's what I liked about it, Ben. What I really liked about it, because what we saw, to go back to the Monica comparison, because it's the only two. When we see Monica, we are the audience looking at the moment where she is blipped back. It's like in Spider-Man Far From Home. We are seeing the audience come back. In Yelena's moment, we're with Yelena. We blip with Yelena, and that creates a whole new dynamic to see how it worked from the perspective of the blipped and not the perspective of someone looking at someone who is blipped. I thought that was really interesting and something I never thought I'd see.
No,
Yeah.
it was definitely something really cool. And also, thank God that lady still owned the house when she
Oh
came
my God,
out
that would have gone very poorly if she didn't.
That would have gone. But still, she's like, Mom, it's like, I'm like, oh, please tell me. Like, you see the whole house is different and changed. I'm like, oh, what happened? Who's there?
Wait, you're not mind controlled? No. You own this whole house? Yes, this is my house.
What was I gonna say? Oh, it wasn't like with Aunt May when she during Far From Home when she said, "Oh, when I blipped, I was in my old apartment, but a new family was there and all that other stuff." It was whereas we see Yelena. I love how we see Yelena go through the blip and how everything. I like the effect like when time is being peeled or everything's kind of like dusting away, but it's just like it's a new paint job, it's new furniture, it's new art decorations. It's just like. And Yelena, I love how Florence Pugh conveys the confusion, the actual what the F is going on.
Florence Pugh is going to prove to be one of the best gets that Marvel has gotten in years.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
I think she is delightful, and I can't wait for her to show up again.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I thought that was a really good opening. I did think it was weird that they play the previously on after that.
Me too.
That kind of broke up the momentum for me in a weird way.
Yes, I thought the same. When that happened, I was like, "What? Wait, what?" Normally you put the opening after the previously on. The previously on is not supposed to be part of the episode.
Yeah, that was a little strange.
Yeah.
I do really love Vera Farmiga's performance when Kate gets home, and she's saying all these things to her, which are very like veiled and coded of "I have intentions for you," and the intentions are not for you to be an Avenger.
Yeah.
Which is also where she's like, "You got to look into Jack. Jack's doing shady shit," and it's like, "No, your mom's doing shady shit. She's setting him up. He's the patsy."
It's like, yeah, he's the. It's I like how like during most of the show we're on Kate's side. It's like, Jack's kind of suspicious, but then later on, it's like, yo, he's just like. He's the dude who's between a rock and a hard place, and he's always showing up at the wrong place at the wrong time.
It's an interesting dynamic with like this show specifically because there's a lot of characters in the show that show up in that Hawkeye series, the AHA Fraction run. Like Swordsman, like Kazi, right? Yeah, Grills. They all show up in that comic, but they're all of them are vastly different. They are very much a name only. Those characters, and I was surprised at the turn that Swordmaster did because of my familiarity with him from the comics. To see that he's just this kind of sweet little puppy dog was very surprising to me.
Yeah, I really like him. I hope he gets to come back. I hope I strongly feel Hawkeye deserves a second season. And should have one. I think it makes the most sense because at this moment in time, we don't know when we see Kate and Yelena again. And I think a show with them makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I'd love for Jack to come back and be like a mentor.
Yeah. I think we could finally retire Clint.
I definitely think that's possible. I don't think we have to, but I don't think he needs to be focused anymore.
I would like to see him like pseudo retired, but I would like when Kate has a problem.
That's what he's been since Civil War.
Let me rephrase. I like to see him real retired, but then Kate goes to him every once in a while for advice and for help. I mean, I would still like to see Jeremy Renner in the role as a Clint Barton Hawkeye, but once again, he's not the focus. Kate's the focus because I really want to see Kate go on her own adventures.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with that. Like, I think we can move on from Clint, and I don't think there's anything that we need. There's nothing left in his story, I think, that we need to see. Arguably, the show didn't really add anything for him. And I would it be okay if this is kind of a send-off for him being like a main player in the MCU going forward? Obviously, it'd still be alive, and we can see him But going forward, maybe he doesn't suit up, or maybe he doesn't leave the farm.
Yeah, there's one more scene I really want to talk about this episode, and that's the fight between Maya and Ronin, aka Clint.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that scene. I mean, besides the seeing Yelena go through the blip, I really liked when Clint finally reveals himself to Maya as Ronin, and he tells her, is like, look, your boss tipped me off to kill your dad. So we're done. And then she sees the realization that it was Kazi who tipped off the Ronin.
Right. It was really funny for Ryan and I, because when we were watching the episode, there's a shot where he like turns after he's taken out some of the guys before the shot where he reveals his face to Echo. And it was 100% very clear it was not Jeremy Renner. Even though you could only see the eyes, it was definitely the stunt guy. And we were like, oh shit, it's not him. And then he takes the mask off and we're like, oh no, it's just a stunt guy. Because we were like, oh shit, the Ronin is someone else. Not so.
Well, don't you remember he uses time travel to go back in time, and we've read this comic.
Yeah, I like that as lead up what it was, saying, I came and took out your boss. I think that there is an amount took out for your boss. I think that there is an amount of, I didn't expect more, so I guess I'm not really disappointed with it, but like, we really just, Bucky killed a lot of innocent people, but he was brainwashed, but he has to like do therapy, and like people are judgmental of him and he needs to atone for it. Hawkeye killed a lot of bad people, but a lot of bad people while he was in his own right mind, just really sad. And, as long as he thinks about it and burns the outfit, I guess it's okay.
I think it's easier for him to disconnect the Ronin. I'm just reading into something that may or may not be what they're thinking, but like Bucky sees himself as the Winter Soldier, whereas I don't think Clint sees himself as the Ronin.
Yeah, and I don't know how I feel about that take.
Yeah.
Because like this is me less having a problem with the show. I think the show's trying to do the best it can with the material, and more me never really liking him being Ronin in Endgame to begin with.
Right.
Because I thought that was a poor character choice. Just to say, like, his family got taken away, so he decided to just murder people. Is a pretty heavy toll to place down, and especially because the movie itself spends so little time considering it. They very quickly move on. Like, you get that setup that's like Don Cheadle being like, I mean, Natasha, the things he's done, I almost don't want to find him. And then they go, and it's like he's like, don't give me hope. And then he's just back at the compound, like chilling, hanging out. Cool, we're gonna save the universe. Like, I don't know. I don't think the Ronin stuff was ever given like its proper due. I don't think there's anything about this version of Hawkeye that made me believe that he would be better at using a sword than Samurai in Japan. And yet that's what we're shown. So I'm like,
yeah,
I've never really appreciated that part of Endgame. So I can't knock the show for not being able to do a lot with that, because I didn't like it as a premise to begin with.
Yeah, I get that. I don't think I ever paid it much mind, honestly. I know I probably should have, being a socially conscious person, but like, it's whatever. It's such a small part of that movie.
That's true, and I think that's maybe part of the issue. It was such shorthand to give Clint a sense of emotional baggage that we would be able to carry with him throughout the film, because we didn't see him for the movie before, and I don't think it was executed well. And I think the show's trying to do the best it can with it, but yeah, I wouldn't have minded if there was like a something more to him having to own up for the Ronin shit, for like killing her dad, something more emotional from him. But there isn't, and that's okay. That's fine. Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, because he doesn't really feel remorse for killing. I mean, he might, but he doesn't really. We don't really get a sense that he feels remorse for killing Echo's dad.
So I think the thing here is that like the concept of bad people that he killed gets really grayed by our perspective of Echo's father.
Yeah.
Because like, sure, he was a member of a gang. Didn't really seem like a bad person though.
Yeah.
You know, like our amount of information we're given makes it so that he feels right. When we are given Echo's backstory, we're made to feel emotionally connected to her because we're like, oh, he seemed kind of nice though. It kind of sucks that Clint would have killed him. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's the Batman thing, right? It's why Batman doesn't kill hired thugs, because like they need a paycheck, they need money. They're doing this not for malicious gain. They're doing this because the system.
Right, and so you've taken this from a place where we can like lie to ourselves and say, well, Clint only really killed like the bad dudes, the guys who were taking advantage, and the blip dudes, like the real worst of the worst crime guys. And now you can't really tell yourself that. Yeah. And so that's where I think like it gets kind of, oh, Clint, what'd you do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's an Echo fight also in the last episode 4. I'll be honest though, Echo didn't do a lot for me in this show.
I think that the show progressively forgets Echo.
Yeah.
And I think it very much becomes you'll get a spinoff. So yeah, don't worry about it.
It kind of feels like the spinoff when the decision we heard about the spinoff decision a long time ago before it was announced. It does feel like the spinoff decision came about, and then they were like, well, we don't need to do that anymore.
I think the Echo stuff is fine until the last episode.
Yeah.
So I'm not having too much of an issue in this episode with the way Clint approaches and does the revelation for Echo and all that. That didn't bother me. We'll talk about the last episode, what did. But Clint going to the Avengers Memorial that Ben brought up earlier and seeing the plaque and it playing the Endgame music from when Natasha.
We still don't see who bought that damn building.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
He was right there.
Yeah, and
did we lose you?
Sweet moment. I think Jeremy Renner's at his best as Hawkeye in the show overall because he's allowed to play like dramatic, sad Hawkeye rather than trying to be anything else. He's able to carry the weight of Natasha, which I think works.
Yeah, I think that's the benefit of having Renner as this Hawkeye, is that he can carry the emotional weight.
Yeah, I just wish they'd found a better path for him to deal with the Ronin shit, because I think especially up until you get to the 5th episode, most of it, like up until you get to, excuse me, hold on.
Yeah, some doggy issues.
Yeah,
up until you get into the 4th episode where he admits to Kate that he was the Ronin, like you don't get a lot of him like taking on responsibility for what he did. It's more like, I just want to pretend that wasn't me.
Yeah.
And I think there's an amount of like you could have had Clint have to push back against that and have to be like, no, I do have to like kind of take some responsibility.
Or like the situation should.
Well, like the situation Echo's in like is partially his responsibility, and there's an amount where he could own up for that. But it's more just like, hey, look, don't kill me, go kill your boss, because he's the one who really, I was just there.
Yeah. Ben.
Yeah,
you had something to say about the Avengers Memorial, though, right? You wanted to bring it up a little earlier.
That was another scene that I really, really liked, because that's kind of opening up to essentially kind of like talk. I akin it to, say, when a hero is at the gravesite of a loved one and they're talking to the gravestone, even though there is no gravestone for Natasha. That's the best he has at the point.
Well, there is a gravestone. I don't think he knows where it is, though.
Oh yeah, that's right. There is a gravestone. No, we saw at the end of Black Widow. But him talking to Natasha at the memorial, I just really like that scene. I love how it's shot. I love how everything else is out of focus except for him.
Yeah, he takes out his hearing aid.
He takes out his hearing aid, so everything's quiet, and he just has that moment with him. And for sake of argument, Natasha's New York headstone.
Sure.
Yeah, I do appreciate returning to that moment. The shows often show their budget though when they do something like that, because we don't like pan up, because right behind that building that he's next to is Avengers Tower, or what it used to be, and the memorial on top of the train station is different than the real memorial. So it's like, let's not use the budget to have to CGI that stuff. Let's just keep it on. Let's just keep it down here.
Yeah, but still, I feel like it keeps it personal because this is a personal moment for Clint.
Yeah,
because he's still haunted by the actions of Endgame. So seeing that scene, I was like, "Oh, this is good." I thought it was good stuff.
It is interesting. I do appreciate that they keep the idea that he is haunted by Nat's death. That is something that weighs on him. I do agree with Sparks that I wish that Ronin kind of weighed on him a bit more than it seems to.
Yeah.
Right. Or even if you did a little more work to make the connective tissue of like even what's in the context of Endgame, which is that Clint feels like it should have been him because of the Ronin stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Ronin stuff is really what put him on I don't deserve to be here kind of thing.
Right.
And I think you could have done more to make that coalesce better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we also get a moment where he talks to Laura on the phone, and he says that at this point it's only a matter of time till the big guy gets involved, which cues up one of my issues with Fisk being in the show, which is that it's implied that means something to Clint and Laura. I get none of that in the back.
Why would it mean something to Laura?
Why does he want a Rolex? Why does he want a Rolex? We don't know.
So he could go and buy a Rolex if he wants. He has the money.
The big reveal is that Vincent D'Onofrio returns as Wilson Fisk. We heard the rumor. I didn't buy the rumor because they screwed us over with Ralph Bohner, and I just stopped believing anything Marvel Studios would do. And I want to talk a bit about seeing him, about like seeing that picture of him. Because we see a picture and I was like, okay, that could be any bald guy. Doesn't look exactly like Vincent D'Onofrio. It could be any. They pulled the rug out from under us again. They've recast Kingpin, and having just been going through Daredevil season 3, seeing his name in the credits made me like explode out of my seat with excitement. I was like, oh my god, Vincent D'Onofrio's back as Kingpin.
Just seeing, because I agree. Seeing the picture on the phone is like, oh, that's the guy who I've been worried about. That's Kingpin. And of course, everyone's like, because Kingpin was spoiled, or Vincent D'Onofrio was spoiled for me thanks to Twitter. Damn you! I had all Spider-Man spoilers silenced except for Hawkeye. But once, and then when they were talking about it, like, yep, because I saw the picture, I'm like, that doesn't look like Vincent D'Onofrio. Then, of course, Brandon was tweeting, and a bunch of other people. I saw the tweet from Vincent D'Onofrio. Was like, so
when I was a boy.
Yeah, when I was a boy, and also the end card, or like the end logo with the Keymax logo. I was like,
oh, and playing the Grinch theme.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
Good.
The Grinch theme song. Okay, so one thing I do. This is just for me. The end credits. The song they pick for the end credits. How it's a different Christmas song every single time. I love it. I think it's so good, and also the song kind of matches what the theme of the episode was. I like it. And the second they say it's Kingpin, and it cuts to "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch," I'm like, oh, that's just perfect. The sound guy was having fun that day.
But as excited as I was to see Wilson Fisk, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why Clint cares.
Nope.
Why does Clint give a shit? He's an Avenger.
There's no two ways around it. I don't think that in the last episode they do a good job of like establishing why Clint was afraid of Wilson. And I will use that to go one step further, which is that I definitely like this show more because I've watched Daredevil. Yeah. And I do not think, if you are a person who has not seen Daredevil, I do not think this is a good setup of Wilson Fisk. If you've seen Daredevil, you're solid. Like, you're good. Like, this is plenty, man. You are a happy clam. But if you haven't watched Daredevil, this is not how you introduce Wilson Fisk.
No. So let's go into the 6th episode if you have nothing more to say about the 5th.
No, I think we're there.
So the 6th episode starts, and I was shocked that it did, starts with Kingpin.
He walks in. On screen is Vincent D'Onofrio. It's like, yo, if you had any cool homes, here I am. D'Onofrio
slips back into the role as if he never left.
It's like the perfectly fit glove or in his case, the most perfect fit tuxedo. He has the cane, and it's like, oh my god, this dude is just right out.
D'Onofrio's Kingpin is a transformation for that actor. Mm-hmm. I've seen that actor in other things. He transforms into the Kingpin.
I have to keep reminding.
sorry, Ben. I still have more things to say.
No,
and
I cut you off.
And when he sits down and they frame him bigger. I don't think he is any bigger than he was in Daredevil, but they definitely film him to be bigger, like much more in line with the comic book version of Kingpin. But like D'Onofrio just sits there and he's got the twitch of the eye and he's talking exactly like, I was like, man, it's like you walked off the set of Daredevil, dude.
What I was going to say is when I was watching Vincent D'Onofrio go back into Kingpin, I had to keep reminding myself, like, that's not his, because I remember him in Jurassic World. And yeah, he was a scumbag in Jurassic World, but it's like, man, this dude is that good. Just that good of a performer. And just the way his voice changes, he's like, Miss Bishop. Like, he does that gravelly, low voice. I'm like, so good.
I think of the three impressions of the three people here, Sparks does the best impression of Kingpin on this show. His dog does too.
Yeah.
His D'Onofrio, when he puts his all into a role, he clearly gives us crap about Kingpin. This is clearly something he's wanted for a long time. He's been the most vocal about returning as Kingpin, returning to his role than anyone else from the Netflix series. It's so nice to see that he gets it back.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie Cox would give Vincent D'Onofrio a little run for his money, but not by much, because he loves being Daredevil. But the fact that Vincent D'Onofrio is back in his MCU,
but Charlie Cox, like I know that Charlie Cox has wanted to return. I know that everyone has wanted to return to their roles, but like none of them have been as vocal as D'Onofrio. I'm sure they all wanted just as much, but D'Onofrio is on Twitter like every freaking day, being like, "Yeah, I want to come back. I want to come back. Get me back. Let's do this. I want to be back."
And then we get the end card. When I was a boy,
love it.
So good. Yeah. I think he is great. I think he feels exactly the same. This is why if you've watched Daredevil, it's just like, yes, this is it. This is yeah. And I think you got all you needed if you watched Daredevil.
Yes.
But if you did not, I think they might have made a misstep in the way they handle Fisk in this episode. And I actually think the solution is he needed to be in less of the episode.
You think so?
I do. I think he should have been in two scenes. The first one and the one with Echo. And then I don't think we should have seen him again for this episode. I think that he should have left everything else to the Tracksuit Mafia. I think we should have focused on Echo and Kazi and Clint and Yelena and Kate and her mom. But I don't think that we should have seen Wilson again. Why? Yeah. Because he's still going to be there, baby. And for the people who aren't familiar with him, you just give them a taste, but you don't blow it. I don't mind him getting his ass handed to him by Kate because I've watched him get his ass handed to him by other people and still come back. But if you are a person new to this, he suddenly goes from being very imposing to kind of like, very fast.
Yeah. I mean, he rips a door off a car, and then he gets his ass kicked by a little girl.
Don't get me wrong; he's still intimidating, but if you aren't familiar with him, you so quickly find him less threatening, than you should. And I think he would have been better left a mystery for people to unravel by going and watching Daredevil or waiting until the next time they see him. For those who aren't familiar, again. I recognize that for me, it lands perfectly fine because I understand. But I do think for like audiences that are going to have to go back and like watch Daredevil to really get how scary he is and how intimidating he is, how big a deal he can be. This was maybe too much. I think they played their hand maybe too much. Not in a way that paid off anything in the show, right? Because if they were going to have him in it more, then you pay off why Clint is afraid of him.
Yes. Yeah, I want to get to that, but Ben, you say what you want to say.
No, I was going to say because of watching Daredevil, knowing how scary Wilson Fisk is. I mean, a scene from the first season Daredevil that will always stick with me, and because of how harrowing it is the fact that Wilson Fisk decapitates a dude by slamming a car door on his neck over and over and over again.
It's a bit more than decapitation. He smashes that dude's head.
I love the meme images of him when he's opened the door on Eleanor, and it's like, You're lucky that we're not on Netflix because the last time it didn't go so well.
Nope.
Yeah.
You're lucky there's not a lot of blood in this show. Just go back to Netflix. Kingpin.
So, how much more do I want to talk about Kingpin before we get to the end?
I mean,
do we want to wait?
I feel like fine. Let's step off Kingpin because I think Kingpin's the kingpin of it all is a big thing.
Yes.
Let's talk about how pretty much I think everything else about the episode works almost entirely except for Echo and Kazi.
Yes.
Echo and Kazi aren't given enough time. This is another thing. Like, either you needed to reduce how much Kingpin was in the show in this episode to give Echo more time with the Kazi thing to make that emotion hit because we needed that, or you have Echo also not in as much of this episode, and like when she leaves, and then we see her later in her spin-off show. I think you do one of those two things, but the weight of what happens between her and Kazi just wasn't there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I didn't feel a lot of emotion in that moment. And ultimately it didn't, what Echo does for me, I'm not excited for her show. You know, I don't come out of this show going, oh yeah, I can't wait for Echo. I'm excited for Echo because of the rumors that it's Daredevil season 4, but I'm not excited for Echo based on what I've seen of this character so far. And I'm sure that'll change with her spinoff. But from what we get in this show, I didn't get a sense that I'm like excited for the next thing that she's in.
She's not given enough time to be anything but a revenge machine until this episode. And even then, like, it's that confrontation with Kazi that I think we needed to see more of the layer of who she is when she's not just out for vengeance. And we kind of glimpse it because what she's trying to do is get Kazi to come with her. But it doesn't totally track or make sense because she also believes that Kazi is the reason her dad is dead. Yeah. So like, there's just like missing pieces there. I agree. Like the main reason I'm excited for Echo's spinoff series right now is because of Wilson more than it is for her. Because I'm 100% confident that Fisk is in that show. That's true. Like, I don't know. There needed to be something more for her.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't think they I don't think they nail it.
Yeah, no. The better emotional beats for me are definitely between Kate and her mom and Yelena and Clint. Those are because I keep forgetting that Echo.
That was really cool. You did that was really cool. You did the thing. That was
Stop
cool.
making me like you. I love oh yeah. Also, I love those two together. I really hope they continue to work together.
That fight scene is so good because you can tell that Yelena isn't annoyed, but she's not putting her all into it. But Kate is.
Right.
And Yelena's kind of like toying with her a bit, and she's just kind of like, it's cool. Like we're having a tussle. Thanks for the warm up.
Or when Yelena rips the dress and then Kate spins and reveals her costume underneath, and she's like, "That's actually really cool." They keep complimenting each other.
Did you plan that?
I think the perfect summation of their relationship is when Kate is trying to stop her and she's like, "What? Why don't we go get a drink? Let's just go get a drink at the bar." And Yelena's like, "Okay, yeah, sure. After I kill Clint." And she means both of those things. She's like, "That sounds great. Let's go get a drink. I also need to kill Clint Barton first."
Or she's like trying to sightsee and she's like, "Oh yeah," and then I was like, "Oh man, that's a really cool tree."
I will say there's something just it's so minute, but like just slightly off about the Clint and Yelena stuff. It gets to me a little bit that Yelena is still so gung-ho about killing Clint after she clearly like took some of what Kate said to heart and went and investigated who hired her to kill Clint. And so that obviously is shady to her, but she still is motivated to, like, I understand still wanting to have a confrontation with Clint, but maybe not necessarily wanting to kill him, like gun to the head the moment you can, from Yelena when she's already pondering how accurate her information is about Clint.
Yeah.
And then I do think like the amount of convincing Clint has to do maybe goes one beat too long. Yeah. I think the whistle is good. I think the whistle should have come out of him earlier. I think that Clint already said enough that it should have convinced her that he knew her well. that we maybe just need to jump to the whistle beat to make that clear to her quicker.
I like that, and this has been revealed in the episode prior, but I do appreciate that Clint reveals that he knows of Yelena. Like Natasha has talked about her. I think that's really nice, a nice character moment.
Yeah. I think it's all pays off very well. I do think, like, I don't agree with a lot of people. I do see where the whistle is similar to Martha. But I think the whistle is based in something that feels more pure. It is Clint saying, I know this whistle, and she's like, you could only know that whistle if she really cared about you, which means that is concrete evidence to Yelena very quickly. Clint and Natasha were close. Clint wouldn't have killed her.
Yeah, it's kind of the earned shorthand that the MCU has established.
Yes, I just think they should have gotten to it a little quicker.
Yeah,
because Yelena going at Clint the way she does feels just a little too far for the context.
Sure. Can we talk about arrows?
Yeah, we can talk about arrows.
I love good arrows.
I didn't expect Oliver Queen in this episode of Hawkeye.
I love trick arrows, and I'm so excited. I was so excited seeing all those really fun trick arrows. But by far my favorite is when the truck in the Pym part of the Pym arrow is like, what happens next? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should ask Scott about that.
And then the owls.
The owl like, those guys are dead.
Those guys died a really bad death.
Yeah.
Got eaten by an owl.
I thought all those arrows were really fun, and I was really excited to see them use such really inventive ones.
And just an incredible action set piece scene at Rockefeller Center, which they definitely didn't film at. So, like, well done to them for recreating it so well.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of really interesting dynamic shots, and I always said that, like, when the action prior. Even when the action I felt was bad, when they use like props or weapons, I thought the action was a lot of fun, and that just like in full force in this final episode.
This is a good moment to bring up that I think Hawkeye overall, certainly in this last episode, it's very evident, but overall, and it is helped by Christmas, sure, has better lighting and color than most of the MCU shows, if not all of them this year. Certainly better than Falcon, certainly better than Loki. Probably comparable to WandaVision. WandaVision already doing a lot with style, so that helps WandaVision in that category. But I think when you consider that this is on the level of the films, this looks brighter and more colorful than a lot of the movies do.
Yeah, there's not a lot of excessive CG, so there's no need to hide it. And kind of their gray tone that they've established with the Russo brothers. I'll blame them. I don't care. I don't even know if it's their fault, but I'll blame them.
It definitely feels like it stems out of a homogeneity that the team up films established, and so there it goes. Yeah.
And I think that this film doesn't suffer from that, and probably because of the lack of CGI, they don't feel like they needed it. But I agree.
I also think there's an amount where you look at the MCU output this year, and I think they're trying to get better. I think they're aware this is a criticism, and they're trying to get better about it.
Sure.
No Way Home is better about it. Eternals was better about it visually.
Shang-Chi had clear action.
Shang-Chi much better about it. Like, I do think like we're seeing them improve, but it is nice that Hawkeye, like, it felt very, very bright and colorful in a good way, even at night.
Yeah, I agree. The Rockefeller Center created a really interesting lighting dynamic with the light kind of coming up from the ice, and having that dynamic color with their costumes already being an interesting color that bounces off of the background it helped.
I love the callback when Clint shoots the arrows at Kazi and he splits the arrow. And Kazi catches it. He's like, nice shot. And he's like, no shit.
That's a good line.
Yeah.
I lost it.
I love that part because he shoots an arrow, shoots another, splits it, does a Robin Hood style, and then takes out the two guys next to him. I actually was pretty impressed that Kazi even caught that arrow the first that arrow I did for him. But then just like, nice shot. No shit.
It's a really good moment for Clint because he doesn't really get like that cocky moment a lot of the time, but to have him just be like, yeah, no duh, I'm good at this.
Right.
Yeah. It was really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all of the Yelena and Clint and Yelena and Kate stuff works magnificently
The
throughout
LARPers,
the season into this. Yeah, I do like the LARPers. I think the bit of them getting into their LARPing outfits for it felt a little CW to me.
Yeah, it did.
The bit where they go, "Is it time? It's time," and they walk up in there, and I'm like, "Am I watching Legends of Tomorrow? What happened here?"
Sure.
And I just think like there was something about the tone of how they handled it that didn't quite work for me. I don't think like the bit of them getting into the outfits bothers me. I think it actually makes a lot of sense. If you live in the MCU, you are going to pay more attention to people in costumes and think that they know better than you. At a certain point, you've spent a little over a decade doing so. Yeah, there was just something maybe a little too tongue in cheek about it.
I get that.
Yeah.
That just, yeah.
But
fun. I do like them working with Kate and Clint, and also I just love it at the very end of the episode when when everything was getting resolved. They're like, "Yeah, we're with Hawkeye. We're basically Avengers now."
Yeah, who isn't? I do love Jack when he's at the party. He's got the sword on his hip, and he's guy gets arrested for possible murder by a sword, and shows up at a party wearing a sword on his belt. It's weird flex, but okay.
He gets a fun action sequence too, and when they're like, "Have you ever thought about LARPing?" You're like, "What? No, I haven't." And he's cleaning his beard.
What sort of leisure activity is that?
Like he's cleaning his. He's like, "Oh man, I got blood on my tie." And then of course, like when he's like fighting the tracksuit, and he's like, he's having a blast. He's like, "Hiya!" Or he's like, "On guard!" And
he's he's like Clint. He's good at the thing he's good at.
Yeah,
and so he's like having a good time.
I just like, oh yeah, he's also on our side. Probably should get him away though.
I also really like the tracksuit bro catching up with Kate and being like, "I wanted to thank you."
Oh my god!
And then she's like, "Okay, so what's up with the gun?" And he's like, "Well,"
and that was such a good moment. It's like we talked, my girlfriend. We talked.
Yeah,
I love that. That was such a good moment.
Yeah, I think all of that. Kate confronting her mom, I think is pretty good. I like the dynamic between them. I like that she has this belief system about like, you just don't understand how the world works. And she's like, this is not like an inconvenience. Killing another guy is not just an inconvenience. And ends up having her mom arrested, I think is pretty good.
Now, Now for me, I'm doing the king. You can't see, but I'm doing the kingpin hands. For me, I think that Wilson should have fought Clint, not Kate. And I understand that there's no emotional weight. You don't get the emotional weight of having Elena there, which is the more important fight. But to establish why Clint was scared of Wilson, I think he needed the moment more than he needed Kate to fight Wilson.
I don't think you needed Clint to fight him, but I get why you're saying that, because I think you needed Clint to fight Yelena, and there's just not enough time for both.
Yeah.
And you absolutely had to have Clint with Yelena because that was way more important.
Yes.
I do think it's a problem that it's not well established why. This is why I go back to like, I think Wilson just shouldn't have been in the rest of the episode, because I think you do something else to make clear why he's scary. And like Kate kind of having to go off his radar at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Like he's still out there. He's still a problem and we are still afraid. But we got the Rolex and we got you out of his crosshairs for now. So we're okay.
And the thing about it is that's just so weird to me. Is like, I understand why like Matt would be scared of Kingpin. Sure. Like if Daredevil was in the show and he's like, "Hey, don't mess with him," I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
But if I am to extrapolate that the only time that Hawkeye has encountered Kingpin was during the blip, which I'm doing some legwork for the MCU here.
Sure.
If I'm to extrapolate that's the moment, I don't understand why an Avenger is scared of Wilson Fisk. Because the whole point of Daredevil is that Wilson Fisk is under their radar.
I mean, and that's kind of the thing is like, Fisk thinks he's been under the radar of Avengers until now.
Yeah.
But you're learning that Hawkeye has always known, but Hawkeye is only known because Ronin is known, right?
Yes.
And so Fisk would know that Ronin has known, but not that Ronin is an Avenger. So those things are different.
Yeah.
So like Hawkeye knows because he got into the seedy underbelly of the crime stuff and realized that Fisk was like, but it does create a question of like, if he's so afraid of Fisk, like, did he try to kill Fisk during the blip and he just like constantly failed because Fisk was just too brutal and too good? Like it becomes a thing of like, he'd be willing to kill anybody. So like, how come he couldn't kill Fisk?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like there's obviously some missing context there.
And I think that the show, if you're going to have Wilson Fisk in it as much as you did, I'm happy to see him, but I needed that context and I don't get it.
Right. Or I think I needed at least the idea of that context existing. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think like it's paid off very well that Clint is afraid of Fisk. You know, we do get the implication that Fisk has been building his criminal empire throughout the blip.
Mm-hmm.
So he's, as far as he's concerned, the city belongs to him.
Which makes sense from where we left him at the end of Daredevil season 3.
Absolutely. And so that's, especially if you assume that Matt did get blipped.
Mm-hmm.
So, because that would really time things out pretty well. Yeah. So it's just, yeah. I think you need Daredevil to make Fisk work in this appearance. I think you have to have watched that show to make him land, because of the way they handled it. I do think it would have been better to leave him as like a kind of like Jaws, where like you're scared about when he'll pop up again, rather than like over showing how much he appears here. I think that they should have left it in like a, you know, we got this all handled and we got your mom arrested rather than murdered. But like, we're still in it, man.
Yeah,
like we're
he's still out there.
We still have to be careful about where we step out of the shadows next, and that could be something to carry on for Kate. And like, maybe that's something she works on Yelena with or whatever. Like there's so much setup in that, and leaving Fisk the imposing force that he should be. But I don't think they handled that quite well, or explored the concept of why Clint was so nervous about him getting the Rolex about Laura. That part's really weird.
Yeah. I want to talk about, sorry Ben, go ahead. And I want to
I was gonna say I kept trying to rack my brain as like, why was the Rolex so important? I mean, yeah, it belonged to Laura and has the Shield logo on it. And Clint does a little nudges like, hey, you gotta be careful, you gotta be better about keeping your stuff together. But the whole time, because I don't really know who Mockingbird is, so that connection didn't really that didn't click.
You didn't watch Agents of Shield?
No, I did not.
Well, I mean, it really wouldn't matter because all it says is Agent 19, and that's something that like people I've talked to, like it's very weird because it is a basically go Google it, nerds moment where like, you know, people who are watching the MCU and they don't get it, they're gonna go Google Agent 19 and they'll be like, oh, like that's really all it's there for, which is kind of strange, but
okay.
Whatever.
I mean, other than that, just like, what was the deal with the Rolex? Like, I agree. What was the deal with the Rolex? Why was the Rolex so important if it was just a watch?
Now, that doesn't. I think I found something I've been missing. That bugs me to no end. And I like the thing that I rub up against the most is the where we leave Wilson Fisk at the end of this episode.
Oh yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
you're not killing him.
No.
Nobody believes you're killing him.
No.
So don't do it.
Right.
I mean,
don't do that scene.
No. Also, the dude literally took an arrow to the chest and just shrugged it.
Pretty good. That was pretty good.
I mean, he took an arrow straight to the sternum. That's where your heart is. You take an arrow there, you dead. But he's just like, snaps.
Well, yeah, because all his clothes are made with the fabric that is tough and won't
but also
be penetrated.
No, so he's like a badass.
But like, I don't mind that Kate beats him. I don't mind. I've seen him beaten before.
Sure.
I think it's a good action sequence. Honestly, like I think he's much stronger than he was when we last saw him.
Right. I think that it's a good, just real quick, because you're talking about it. Like, I think I think his strength comparison is a good translation. He was always strong. Like, I think the car door is the only one that you really get me on. But like, other than that, I think it's a match strength to his strength in Daredevil. I do think like they do a good job of making him feel just as strong without being able to show him being bloody. Because they have to like make that translation. I think it works personally. I think it works. I again have to like specify, like, I like the fight with Kate. I just think it's a misstep if you assume that viewers are seeing him for the first time.
Yeah, I agree. But the end with Echo pointing the gun at him. Yeah. Now, there's only two ways that scene goes. You either kill him, in which case you waste it. You waste Wilson Fisk's first appearance in the MCU.
What a Ralph Boner moment.
What a Ralph Boner moment. Or you don't, in which case that sequence is useless anyway. There's just no world where I see that scene being a good addition to the show.
No, I agree. And like you because you did it there, you like rushed all the like emotional weight of what Echo should feel and what we should be connecting for her about that confrontation. And like that's all gone now. Like you have to rebuild it up if they're going to face each other again or whatever. I agree. I think that scene's bad. I wouldn't have done it.
No, I wouldn't have either.
Yeah. I think that I highly doubt they're killing him, and if they do kill him, I'm like,
no.
I don't believe.
Hold on. You hear the gunshot, and then you hear a thud, like a body going to the floor. And I'm just like, I know Wilson's not dead, but I'm gonna be pissed if they come out and say, "Yeah, we killed Wilson Fisk and Hawkeye." I'm like, you suck.
I don't remember hearing the thud, but that's fair. I don't believe for a moment that you're killing Wilson Fisk. I don't. There's not a moment of that scene where I'm like, oh, maybe. And honestly, if you want me to think, oh, maybe, I'm pissed. Because it's what a waste.
It's like one of the most badass and scariest villains the Marvel has in their lineup, and B, what a waste of a terrific actor. It's like, yeah, you got him 3 seasons of a Netflix show, but then once he's finally introduced properly in the biggest cinematic universe of our time, it's just, oh yeah, he was only in for like 1 episode of a season and then he's gone. It's like, well, that's a glorified cameo at this point.
And I know that Vincent D'Onofrio is very honest with his fans, which is really great. But he was like, yeah, I don't know where I go next. I hope they didn't kill me either.
Yeah, that's true. Like I am very sure they didn't. There is a part of me that fears like that they'll decide that they did.
Ralph Boner.
And like, I'll be honest, like I will have a hard time enjoying some MCU things for a while if that were the case. But I don't think so. I agree. Overall, I agree. Just I don't think that scene should have been there. I think that it feels cheap in a.
I want my Spider-Man. I want my Spider-Man, Daredevil v Wilson Fisk Kingpin team up. That's what I want.
I mean, who doesn't?
Maybe he bought Avengers Tower.
That's my assumption.
I want to see
that fucking tower.
Fisk
I want
bought
to see
that tower.
Let's see a thing that says Fisk for Mayor of New York. That would be a really cool thing for like a.
Can you imagine Matt? Like Echo starts, Matt Murdock comes back from the blip. Fisk for Mayor of New York posters everywhere. Can you imagine?
Man, like if you've got all these, if you're gonna start bringing in a lot of the street level heroes, like you want to do some Mayor Fisk storyline carried throughout, I'd be into it.
Me too.
Part
of me feels like Echo is gonna reveal what's gonna happen during that scene, and then we'll see Wilson's shot, and then Echo's like, she gets cocky, she's like, haha, I killed him. But then of course you get the classic like he wakes up in the middle of the gutter.
I've seen the one where it's like she moves the gun. She doesn't shoot him in the face.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
We do hear a thud. Ben is correct about that. So I do wonder how they'll elaborate on that. I do think it's entirely possible, especially us knowing how Fisk's clothes are, that she shot him and he went down, but he didn't die. Mm-hmm. There's also the comic comparisons where people are saying this is when she blinded him. It's almost a recreation of that moment in the comics. I kind of hope they don't go that route. I don't really want, because like in the comics, obviously that was temporary, and I don't really want them to do something like that temporarily, but I also don't want to blind Fisk from here on. So I hope that's not really the route that they go. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. Either way, I'm fairly confident that he's still in it. That is a dumb scene. I wish it wasn't there.
Like the entire episode was like, yeah, awesome. And then we get to that. I'm like, you better not think what I think you're trying to do. You're better do what I think you're doing.
I think this is one of the better final episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Even without we obviously the Echo stuff and the Fisk stuff we've talked about being the detractors, but I think ultimately the fact that this show didn't have to wrap up as many storylines as other shows have had to. I think this is one of the better ones. I think Loki also has a good ending, and I think this one is good as well. The simpler ones end up having the better endings because they don't need to do the legwork to wrap up 40 storylines that you've set up in 6 hours.
Right.
Yeah, which is in general just like I think they're cramming too much into 6 hours, and Hawkeye is one where I truly don't feel like too much was crammed into this. We've talked about like, oh, I wish that we've gotten a little more of this, a little more of that, but I also still feel like there's an Echo show, so we will get more of some of this.
Mm-hmm.
There is probably another season of Hawkeye, so I think we'll still get more of some of that. So like overall, I do think like it nailed a lot of what it was. The core emotional beats of its main characters, Echo aside, were all paid off.
Yeah.
The emotional stories were all paid off.
Yeah.
I don't feel like anyone emotionally, like it's all like minor details and things that logistically don't make a ton of sense or we have to wonder about, but all those core emotional things followed through on.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Anything else you want to add?
Oh, let me take a look at my notes real quick. I didn't even.
Ultimately, I think it was a solid showing from the MCU. I think it's a good show. I like Clint. I like Kate. I like Elena.
I'm really glad we did get the moment where Kate finally like relates her story about watching Clint in the Battle of New York.
Oh yeah.
So send home to him that you are important and you are someone who inspires people. I really like Fisk interacting with Maya in that first scene. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, you get the sense that he's bringing some of his like Vanessa, you know how he feels about Vanessa, and like he does care about.
But it feels more manipulative.
Yes,
because he's so good. He's so slimy. Those are some ones that we haven't said a lot about her, but I think Vera Farmiga was very good with what she was given.
Yeah,
she was.
I don't think she was given a lot, but I liked it.
I think she was given good emotional material for like the main thing she's running for. I think that she's still around for a reason. I think we're probably going to see her do something more and worse later. Madam Mask, anyone?
Maybe.
We'll see. I thought that she played very well though. I liked her a lot. I love that there's more than one scene watching her have to play with Vincent D'Onofrio. So good. I'm just so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be at the point where we could just be like, Daredevil is canon.
It was a very good 2 weeks going from Hawkeye to spoilers, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah. And back to Hawkeye and just
back to
Hawkeye. Yes. I believe everything now. I believe that Kristen Ritter's in She-Hulk. I believe everything.
Yeah, they discounted that rumor recently, but yeah, it could be a red herring. I'm still of the sense of like I don't until it happens. I'm still skeptical. That Ralph Boner situation did some damage. There's some scar tissue that they're going to need to work through before I'm like, yes, we're all good to go, guys.
Yeah.
Ralph Boner.
I'm just glad we're embracing those Netflix street level heroes. I'm glad they're able to be here. I really do hope, like slightly related to Spider-Man, I hope that Spider-Man kind of gets to play in that side of the world for a bit now. That's something we can do. Like, no Avengers, let's hang out with the Defenders. Woo! Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
I wonder if, like, for major event movies, like if there were to be another Endgame, I kind of hope that they go the way of like the comics and having maybe the Disney Plus be home to maybe like one-shot material to tie in to a major event like we see with comic books.
Oh man, that'd be interesting. It'd be hard.
It would be, and I worry. I worry about bringing that up because like what I would want them to do would be have them ancillary, like a character that doesn't make it into the main story gets a one shot, gets like less like 30 minutes of a Disney Plus special that ties it in. But I worry that what the MCU would actually do would be make it like a necessary thing in order to understand the main plot of a movie, and I don't think that's not what I want. What I would want is something that isn't necessary.
Yeah, I think there's room for that. I think like the way you'd have to do it is you'd have to do like, I don't know, you'd have to do like an Infinity War and an Endgame again. So part 1, part 2, and in between the part 1, part 2, you have like some side stuff that's like filling in, not necessarily filling in the time in between, but being like, this is what was happening while this was happening in that last movie, and like,
Yeah,
someday.
maybe. I'm so convinced that a Young Avengers movie is coming.
Oh, I'm sure.
All right, that'll do it.
That'll do it.
That'll do it.
Yeah. Oh, you know, like there's definitely like some flaws. This is in no way a perfect show, but I do think like it comes out as a overall 1 through 6 episode more satisfying experience, I think, than all maybe of the MCU shows this year.
I'd have to really think about it.
WandaVision might clear that bar. I don't know though. No, I don't think so. The Ralph Boner thing really ruins it for me.
Yeah, I
can't call it an overall satisfying experience because of that.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
And like Hawkeye, I am satisfied. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I am satisfied.
That's a good point. Okay, well that'll do it. So, hey, we did it. Another Fake Nerds Watch. Who knows when the next Fake Nerds Watch will be? Possibly Book of Boba Fett. Possibly Doom Patrol. Possibly the next Marvel show. Whenever that, I think it's Miss Marvel next. No, She-Hulk next.
It's very likely Moon Knight, though we don't know that for sure.
Okay, Moon Knight next. Maybe that. But there is a concurrently there is another show that I do with Downright Nerdies, Michael Carls. He and I are doing Star Trek Discovery, which is going on hiatus. So that'll be ending soon as well. But you can find all of that stuff on...
Go back and watch the end of Hawkeye episode 1 through 3 discussion where we say stay fake nerds, but at the end Brandon does this because he's too used to the Star Trek episodes.
I did do that. I saw that. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's all the stuff. You can find all the sorts of stuff. We're still in hiatus at the time of this recording of our main show, Fake Nerd Podcast. But we'll be back with another live show on January 9th, where we're talking about our best of 2021. We're going to do a top 10 list of all the things that we loved in 2021, and that'll be that. That's the whole episode. So, and a lot of news to catch up on. So stay tuned. There's a new Basement Arcade episode that is out now of Mortal Kombat X. There's some older reviews that if you want to watch these reviews without the rest of the episode, those are up now. Other than that, most of the stuff is on hiatus while we celebrate the new year. So stay tuned for all that. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all at Fake Nerd Podcast, fakenerdguys@gmail.com. You can find our website, fakenerdpodcast.com, where you can check out everything I've mentioned. Our Patreon and our TeePublic are also linked there. You can find me at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. I also write for Screen Rant. Just type in my name on Screen Rant. You can find a bunch of the lists that I've written already. I've written quite a bit. And Ben Magnet, where can I find you?
You can find me going back to bed. No, not really. At BenMagnet27 on Instagram and Twitter. And also, like Brandon, I mean, I don't write for Screen Rant, but I do write for OldSchoolGamerMagazine.com. And at the time of this recording, new article is in the works, but my previous one is up now. What was my previous one about?
I don't remember, Ben.
I forgot.
Gift giving.
That's it. Getting games as gifts because, we're adults and, yeah, go read it. Have fun.
Sparks, where can I find you?
You can find me wishing you a happy new year and hoping that we can maintain a solid working relationship going forward at Sparks Witty on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZ Witty.
Vincent D'Onofrio just came in for a second, guys. I don't know if you know that. That was wild. All right. Find us everywhere on the stuffs. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. Until next time you see us, stay fake nerds.